What family members still linger in this stately mansion?
Why do visitors get an eerie, unwelcome feeling throughout this home?
Who is responsible for phantom piano music echoing through the first floor?
Find out the answers to these questions and more as we uncover the atmospheric hauntings and history from the Flavel Mansion in Astoria, Oregon.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Erica.
And this is The Haunted Atlas, a Haunted US podcast. In the interest of fully exploring history of certain locations, The Haunted Atlas may discuss sensitive or disturbing topics. Listener discretion is advised.
Seated in downtown Astoria, a few blocks from the Columbia River, the Flavel Mansion rises with a quiet, imposing presence, its intricate Victorian details softened by coastal fog. Darkened windows and narrow halls give the home a closed-off feeling, as if it's holding onto something just beneath the surface. The Flavel Mansion is a Queen Anne-style home, which is defined as basically an extremely bold house. You're looking at an asymmetrical facade, varied roof lines rather than like a single harmonious roof, and bright colors.
I always think of Queen Anne's lace when I hear Queen Anne, and I know that that's not the same exactly as a house, but I think when you are in the concept of design of Queen Anne, that gives me a good idea of how the house looks.
That's a really good point. I didn't even make that connection when I was doing the research. But they are so beautiful to look at. Like, obviously, I was just looking into what other types of Queen Anne houses there might be. And it's so funny to me that it really is just varied,
Right, but they're all so intricate. The details are so fine, even on large houses.
Yes. This particular mansion is a namesake for the tugboat captain George Flavel. His arrival in Oregon in December 1851 served an important purpose for his career. At this point, he just had his captain's license, and so he came here to obtain his marine piloting state license.
I am completely unfamiliar with marine piloting. Is that like landing on aircraft carriers?
No, actually. It's kind of similar to your captain's license, but it's a step up, I would say. So you have your captain's license, you're good at navigating open waters. The piloting license is what allows you to land the boat on land, clearly, and kind of navigating through the piers.
Okay, so it's more against a shoreline versus open ocean?
Yes. An experienced captain might obtain this. Like I said, it's kind of a step up. It's really prominent because of the fact that, trying to navigate through open waters is a lot different than what some would consider hazardous stretches, which are literally landing the boat through the pier.
Sure.
To point out how Astoria compares to other landing strips, it's actually considered so dangerous that the U.S. Coast Guard uses this specific area as a training ground.
I didn't even think about the fact that you would need real life locations to train.
That's fair.
I'm sure you could do simulated practice grounds, but what's better than a dangerous shoreline that nature gave us?
Right, exactly. And think about the fact then that George came here to obtain the license. So I don't know if he knew that this was like one of the most dangerous areas, but if he did, he was like, I would like to learn this on hard mode.
Right. I want to be really good at this.
Yes. Side note, I ended up fully researching some of the maritime terms that I was kind of familiar with, but not super familiar with their full definitions, just because as I'm like doing the research on this particular mansion, of course, we're talking about boats a lot, and I was like, I actually don't know what any of this stuff is. The 4 terms I'm going to talk about are docks, quays, wharfs, and piers, because I think those 4 things are kind of used interchangeably. Docks are, in general, structures that a boat can be tied to be specifically docked. Quays and wharfs, it seems like, are both specific types of docks. They're built parallel to the water, so ships can dock basically on the shoreline connected to land, with quays being more of a natural type dock and built as part of the land, right along the waterline. And then wharfs are the same, but projected out onto the water a bit.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yes. And then piers are also docks, but instead of being floating structures, they tend to be rooted in the ground. Now, as a note, again, a lot of these terms are used interchangeably, and I believe these are strictly the US definitions of each term. I think other countries have different definitions for them. So George Flavel was actually one of the only pilots to also have his captain's license at the same time. So the way I'm thinking of it is like usually you have your captain's license, and then when you get your pilot's license, you kind of let your captain's license go.
Okay.
And he kept both of them. He was pretty sought after among these seaside towns who wanted to expand into oceanic or interstate trade.
That makes sense. He can help them navigate challenging waters.
Exactly. Plus, I'm thinking it's probably a lot easier to just hire one person to do both jobs than it would be to like try to find two people to do the jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a specialist.
Right. Or I guess three, because you'd have a pilot get you out, you'd have the captain take you to the next thing, and then you'd have another pilot come out and navigate in.
You're right.
George proved that he was a man who deserved the hype after a tragic incident began on January 28th, 1852. He was aboard the steamboat SS General Warren at the helm, specifically when it took off from Astoria. It was a cargo ship, though passengers were also aboard. After he got the boat to open waters, he allowed the captain, Captain Charles Thompson, to retake the helm, and he traveled back to Astoria in a pilot boat. The ship hit extremely rough water, and at this point, it basically needed to return to Astoria, or it would have lost all of its cargo. And again, there were passengers on board.
Mm-hmm.
Captain Thompson signaled for a bar pilot to come help navigate the ship back into the harbor. I've mentioned that George Flavel was kind of unique in the fact that he had his captain's license and his piloting license, but he was also super unique in the fact that he kind of created this position called the bar pilot.
That's amazing. Imagine being that good at your area of expertise that you literally create a higher rank.
Yes, I mean, he knew what he was doing. And I think maybe he did know that he was going into hard mode. You know?
Correct.
Up until bar pilots existed, approximately 2,000 ships had gone down on the Columbia River in the 1700s because of the dangerous sandbars underneath the river where they meet the oceanic currents. Even slight delays on the cargo that's being transported could cost so much money, so having these bar pilots in place not only are for safety reasons, but also protecting the monetary value of the cargo.
That makes sense.
Yes. And so when George arrived, he had some hesitation with piloting the ship at that current time because of the time of day and the weather conditions. I believe the time of day was it was starting to get dark, and obviously the weather conditions were getting worse.
A recipe for disaster.
Yes. The passengers, and allegedly Captain Thompson as well, tried to get him to do it anyways.
Yeah, because they need him to do it.
Right. At this point, again, the cargo might be going bad. There's unsafe conditions. I get everybody wanting to go back. I will say that Captain Thompson being on there, the passenger side, is alleged. We don't have historical records that confirm that. At least some people wanted him to try anyways, and he wasn't really making headway after his efforts because of the water pushing up against the ship. So the back of the ship and the cargo were basically deteriorating, while he's trying to navigate and get somewhere.
That's terrifying.
It's terrifying. I'm imagining all the passengers are just slowly moving to the front of the ship.
Right. Oh gosh.
It's terrifying. Captain Thompson had not told George Flavel before the journey that the SS General Warren was deemed unseaworthy. So that was another aspect of this.
I am shocked. I wish that listeners could see my face right now. Why would you do that? Just for the money?
It has to be that, or maybe he thought, it's fine, we'll make it. I don't fully know the reasoning behind that, but would have maybe been a good thing to mention. So George beaches the boat, and that means intentionally running the bow at the front of the boat into a shallow sanded land area for easy access. For passengers to get off, it's a lot easier if you're already on land. He beaches the boat, but because heavy ships were in the way, the crew and the passengers couldn't reach the shore. Because again, at this time, it's night. So all of the ships that are kind of in for the night are in for the night.
And now the ship is stuck on sand.
Exactly. At 3 a.m., conditions worsened, and he headed back to Astoria in this insane weather in a lifeboat with 9 other crew members to get help. I cannot imagine balancing that lifeboat was easy with 10 people in there.
Honestly, this should be a movie. This sounds better than Titanic.
I agree.
Hot take.
Hot take. I actually think this would be a cool movie, though. That's a
I
good
do.
point. He does make it back to Astoria, which, again, good movie scene. He does get help, but unfortunately, not so good for the movie. When he goes back to the Warren with help, by the time they got back there, the ship had completely fallen apart and just was sent adrift. No one on board survived. 52 souls were lost in the wreckage.
Wow. And he really did his best.
He did. I mean, navigating a lifeboat, he had to have confidence in himself, which, as we know, is important for any endeavor. But there's almost a part of me that thinks that if I was doing that, and of course I'm not a skilled bar pilot, but I would be like, there's a chance that I don't live.
Right. Especially with the bad conditions
Right.
at night.
I know, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. So he was rightfully, in my opinion at least, hailed as a hero back in Astoria just for his efforts. And the reason that this is so important to Flavel Mansion's history is that this is how he leveraged his way to that position and leveraged his way into being one of the most sought after pilots in the area. That also made him one of the richest men in the region. And because of that, he could build whatever mansion he wanted.
Which feels deserved.
Yes. So now we can finally talk about the actual construction of the mansion. It started in 1884, and according to the Clatsop County's Historical Society's website, it finished up in 1886 for George's retirement home. It was 11,600 square feet, and it cost about $36,000 to construct. In today's money, that would be equivalent to $1,213,000.
Not that that isn't a lot of money, because it's over $1 million. But when you are the best of the best in your field, I would have expected this to be like $7 million, $10 million.
That's fair. That's fair.
But who really needs more than 11,000 square feet? Almost 12,000.
And, the other thing is, it would be interesting to maybe learn about his life a little bit outside of his time during the ships. I mean, he definitely had a lot, but at this point it was his retirement home. So it's possible that he only had like a certain amount left.
That's true.
The mansion itself is 2.5 stories. The tower attached to the mansion is actually 4 stories, plus it has a basement. A lot of places to investigate, is what I was thinking. Speaking of the tower, George actually used this tower quite often to keep an eye on the ships coming in and out of the Columbia River. So even after retirement, the ships were so important to his life.
That's very sweet.
It even gets me more thinking like he built the mansion, so he built it with that purpose in mind.
Right, with the intention of being able to still oversee it.
Yes, exactly. George lived in this property with his wife Mary and their 2 grown daughters, Nellie and Katie. They also had a son named George, but he was already married by the time that George Flavel was retired and living in a house of his own. Unfortunately, George Sr. passed in 1893, and so he didn't have a ton of time with his family in the house because, again, it was finished in 1886. I do like to think, though, that for those 7 to 8 years, he really did enjoy his retirement and just chilled out the whole time,
It sounds like it. He has his family with him. He can still see the ships, which he loves, in this house that he designed.
Right. And after having such a stressful job, a stressful career, I mean, it must have been nice to just get to sit back and watch everything.
Or was he still stressed out watching the ships?
That's fair. He's like correcting them. Oh, I don't know. Maybe go a little right.
He's like, no.
Mary lived in the house until her passing in 1928. The mansion itself traded hands a few times until 1934, when George and Mary's great-granddaughter Patricia Jean Flavel donated it to the city, which I always love.
I do love that, especially if the city is willing to put in the money and time to preserve the historical site.
Yes, and I also think that these mansions are super interesting historically because of the fact that a lot of times you also get to see the antiques and items that they lived with and used all the time. What better way to learn about history than like literally in a place that's all of this space with all of these items?
Right, frozen in time.
Yes. The city actually wanted to tear down the house, though, to build a community park, which is a nice thought-ish, but I'm very glad it didn't work out. Sorry to Astoria.
Well, It's nice to preserve these things because at the time it might not seem very important, but when you look at it 50, 100, 150 years down the road, the history becomes more significant because there are fewer and fewer of those style of homes that remain.
That's true. And you know what? Maybe that's a fair point. Like maybe I judged the city a little too quickly because to them they were probably like, okay, it's an old home.
Right.
Like they're not thinking about it in terms of like, oh, this is a historical building. The reason that this didn't work out was actually because of the Great Depression. They couldn't find the funds to really do anything with the property or raise enough funds to build the park that they wanted to. So then it's returned back to the Flavels in 1936. And the family offered up the residence to be used by like a few different public offices over the years. The Red Cross took over at some point, the Public Health Department used it, and also the Welfare Commission.
What a beautiful place to have your office.
That is true. Can you imagine if you were just like working for the Red Cross and then all of a sudden they're like, hey, you're going to a mansion?
Yeah, this historical mansion that's absolutely stunning.
Yeah, that's actually so cool. I would love that. Oh, what if your office was in the tower?
That would be really cool.
That would
And then
be
you
cool.
got nice views of the river.
Yes, yes. Finally, in 1951, the city of Astoria tried again to tear down the house. But this time, it was met with so much uproar in the community. Concerned citizens rallied, and they got the mansion turned into a museum operated by the local historical society.
That's one of the best outcomes when it comes to these historical homes.
Yes, and it was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1980. As we move forward in time, like you said, people are starting to realize, like, hey, we should preserve some of this stuff. The place still functions as a museum today by the Clatsop County Historical Society. The Flavel family has been involved with the city of Astoria's history since George Flavel's heroic actions along the Columbia River, and their presence in the city still continues today in the old Flavel Mansion they once called home.
Hey guys, I'm Tommy from Tommy Cullum's Let's Get Freaky podcast, where we talk to real people and have real conversations about paranormal experiences, including ghosts, cryptids, UFOs, and all high strangeness, and even a little bit of conspiracy too. So if you enjoy these freaky conversations, check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And we're also available to watch on YouTube. Tommy Cullum's Let's Get Freaky.
The Flavel Mansion draws visitors with the historical significance of the home, but many also encounter ghosts. In fact, the first 2 floors are what's open to the public, and that makes sense. The tower might be harder to maintain.
That's fair, and I guess with 4 stories it could be more dangerous maybe if it's not maintained correctly.
Right, and then I assume the basement would be used for storage.
That makes sense. I would love to see the tower though. I mean, again, fully respect their decision to close it up, but that would be so cool because imagine if they still have like George's chair up there and you could just sit in there and pretend to watch the ships, or they probably still have ships.
But not the same type, but I know
Right.
what you mean. It's like stepping back into time.
Yes.
Because those are the 2 floors that see the most traffic, that's where a lot of the claims are based. People report 2 specific auditory hauntings here. The first is hearing people talking even when they're there alone. And to me, this makes a lot of sense because this was a family home. A lot of people lived here, and then it was offices. So it makes sense that there could be some residual energy of conversation.
If I worked in that building for a week, I would use that as a tie and spend my afterlife there.
Really?
That sounds so cool. Because as a spirit, you can go up to the tower.
Yeah. And honestly, I'm sure there's a way to get up to the tower. It's just probably special events or offices or something like
Yeah.
that.
I'll just like sneak my way into the Historical Society employment somehow and then be like, hey. And then once they get me up there, I'm like, okay, I'm done. Thanks.
I thought you meant just sneak in. I was like, and how did Erica get arrested? Well, she broke into a historical mansion and she stole stuff. Nope, she just wanted to look out the window. The second auditory haunting there is the sound of music.
Whoa.
Fun fact, the Flavel daughters were prominent musicians, and they were known for their musicality. So it would have been a regular sound in the home to have pianos playing, other instruments, etc., because the 2 daughters regularly played music.
I feel like as we're talking more and more, We're just adding to the like nice ambiance of George sitting in the tower. Like, can you imagine to piano music? That must have been so nice.
It's like he's up in the tower watching while people are chit-chatting on the floors and his daughters are playing music. It honestly, at this point in the paranormal claims, sounds like a great place to have your afterlife.
That's true. Also, that would be a killer shot to the end of our movie.
There we go.
Is him sitting in the tower with a piano playing.
Yes. And then it all fades and you realize they were ghosts all along.
Yes.
His daughters aren't alone because, unsurprisingly, George is said to still be there. He appears in the master bedroom and he is said to fade into the floor and disappear almost as if he's sinking.
Whoa, that's kind of interesting.
I know. It's an interesting thought to me, sinking when you were a captain.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like how that would make sense.
It could just be that that's the most convenient way for his spirit to move between the floors.
True.
But I think this sinking, that's a very specific description. Sinking.
It is. I don't think that we've heard that before. Of like a spirit, we've heard of spirits kind of disappearing before your eyes or floating through the rooms. I don't know that I've heard one like sinking into the floorboards.
Right. But it could be that he's going down to the first floor where his daughters are playing music.
Right.
There's another haunted bedroom, and that is Katie's room. The curtains in the room are said to open on their own, and many say that this is because Katie loved natural light and the outdoors, and we know that the home had some beautiful views. This makes a lot of sense to me. If she's still in the room and they close the curtains, it's like, no, please open. I want to be able to see it.
Right. Yes. I know that closing the curtains probably does preserve something. Like, at night you want your curtains closed. Right. It makes sense to just keep things closed at night. But I think that it's kind of sweet that Katie might be in there. Like, no, I would like the sun to come into my room.
Right. And I think when initially you think of hearing music with no definitive cause, meaning even paranormal, no definitive cause, you can think that it might be a more residual haunting. But when we know that her spirit is elsewhere in the building, that could be more of an active haunting than just residual. Also in Katie's room, when visitors take photos, they're tapped on the shoulder.
Whoa.
What do we think the reason is behind this?
Maybe the spirits, if they're George Flavel or his family, are like, hey, what is that?
Oh, it could be.
You know what I mean? Like they're tapping on the shoulder to be like, what is this gadget you've got here?
See, I was thinking, because it seems like there's so much happiness, that maybe she's like, oh, hey, I'm over here, actually.
Oh my gosh, that's such a cute idea. I love that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I love that idea. I was trying to think of like the years, but I truly have no idea when the camera was invented.
I have no idea.
And I was like, that is such a good theory because it was probably a very rare thing for them. So for people just coming in, taking all of these photos, if that theory's correct, which I love, they're probably excited that they can just like take picture after picture after picture.
Right. Or my thought is because she loved nature and she loved looking out her window, she could be like, oh, hey, you should take a photo of this. Either way, very positive. I think it's very sweet that people believe that George and Katie are there together.
Yes.
On the second floor, there are also reports of the smell of perfume. Now, I say this every single time a scent comes up. I'm very skeptical of this because we know that scents can be held in materials, and when they expand and contract, it can release the scent. And in this case, the scent doesn't seem to be associated with any other haunting. For example, if someone is smelling cigar smoke and seeing an apparition, I'm more likely to say, okay, that's paranormal. But if you're just smelling this scent and nothing else is happening, I'm more likely to think that there are normal causes.
Right, especially because at this point, the Historical Society has taken over the building. Is it possible that that's just an employee's perfume?
Right, or anything. Is it a plug-in thing? Is it an air freshener stored somewhere that you can't see?
Right.
Although it's not associated, there is a female spirit that is sometimes seen in the second floor hallway. She is said to disappear when approached, and there are no details on who this might be. I would think it could be Katie, or it could be Nellie, actually. It could be either of them. Because there's activity in Katie's room that makes me think it's Katie, but we have no way of knowing if this is the same spirit or not.
Right. I would also be curious to know what the floors were used for when the public offices were using them, because if the second floor was used as offices, then maybe it's someone from like the Red Cross or the Welfare Commission.
That's true. My other thought about this spirit is it could be Mary, because even the opening of the curtains, just because it's Katie's room doesn't mean Katie was the only person in there. Mary could have gone in and opened her daughter's curtains, or if they had any staff, it could even be a staff member.
Yeah.
It would be really interesting to dig into that more and try to figure out who it could be.
That would be a really good question to try to get an answer from on a spirit box.
Yeah, absolutely. Until this point, we've had a picture-perfect ghost family.
Uh-oh.
Here's where some negativity comes in, because not all the spirits here are happy family members. There is a spirit in the library, and no one knows who it is, but it's said to produce a very negative feeling. People report feeling unwelcome and overall unhappy while in this room. The same feeling is reported in the 3rd floor of the tower. Now, a few questions for you. 1, do you think that they're related or separate occurrences? And 2, who do you think this could be?
Okay, so I think that they are related, whether they're the same spirit or not, they could be related. Is it possible that the passengers on the ship felt like George didn't do enough because they all perished, and so it could be 2 of them? I mean, I know he built this house so much after that happened, and so it's possible that one could argue, how would they even know that this was his spot?
Mm-hmm.
But it's really the only negative thing I can think of in the history that we talked about.
That is a good point. A thought that I had for the tower is I do wonder if it could be George watching the other ships and feeling some sort of anxiety or negativity over how they're trying to navigate.
Yeah, that's true.
In terms of the library, I wonder if there were potentially business dealings or something that went on there that had some level of negativity associated. I'm sure that there's a side to the story that we don't know and probably never will know about if they did have staff, if there was turmoil in the family, anything like that. So it could be something unknown to us. Thinking of the negativity, you have a good point about the 52 souls that were lost when the ship sank. Our version of the story, George is a hero. In their version of the story, is he a villain? Or is he still a hero and they appreciate him for trying? Either way, I wonder if they're part of the chatter that's heard. Rather than it being like a party or family, I wonder if it's the 52 that perished. Either they're 1, angry with George, or 2, they're kind of celebrating him as a hero.
Do you think that that could relate anyway to the sinking?
Whoa.
Like, you know what I mean? Like if they're there and he's sinking into the floor?
I had not considered that, but definitely that could be. Almost like a sinking feeling and mirroring it.
Yeah. And
It
I
definitely
know
could
that
be.
no one's up in the tower, so it's not really possible for us to, it's not really possible. There just aren't reports of George being spotted in the tower because no one's up there. But yeah, I wonder if sometimes he spends his time up there, and then if he comes down, that's when he gets, bombarded with these other spirits who may be unhappy. And I think even if they know he tried his best, could still just have a negative aura because of what happened to them.
Right. Building off that theory, I wonder if he is not often spotted in the tower, like you said, because it's not as frequently visited. What if the sinking actually starts at the top of the tower and he goes all the way down and nobody's in the basement, so nobody would know?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Because that might explain the feeling on the 3rd floor of the tower.
And maybe it's not even other spirits making him feel this way. Maybe he feels guilt.
You know what? That's a very fair point. Because I feel like what we've heard from his personality, and this is a very large assumption, not based in fact at all, that it seems like he might be hard on himself.
Right.
And might take that incident super seriously and might be in his head going over and over what he feels like he could have done better.
Even though the captain didn't tell him that it wasn't seaworthy. So what really could have been done?
Yeah, where's Captain Thompson? That's what I want to know.
I know, right? The rest of the ghosts kicked him out.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on the hauntings?
I just really like this story, and I always love historical homes. It's nice to hear that even though there might be some negativity, and that would be really cool to try to investigate to see what that negativity might be coming from, because I don't feel like it's malicious.
Right.
And that's what I like about it. I think most of the spirits here are relaxed and, for the most part, pleasant and feeling positive, which is always what you want. So it would be really cool to visit this place.
Yeah, it's surprising to me, given the loss of life, the positivity that seems to be in this mansion. Of course, the library and the third floor, there is negativity, but in an otherwise very happy space, there's bound to be some negativity. If you have visited the Flavel Mansion, we would love to hear about your experience. You can email the team at hauntedus.com and include Haunted Atlas Flavel Mansion in the subject, or find us on social media at hauntedus. Tune in to our next episode to see where we drop the pin on our adventure across the haunted US. This episode of Haunted Atlas was presented and researched by Sarah Sweeney and Erica Barrett, supported by research from Haunted US head writer Mitch Goff, with production assistance by David Sweeney and music by Colleen Johnson. Our executive producer is Brandon Ruggsey. Haunted Atlas is a production of Haunted US. Visit hauntedus.com for more information.